I want to tell you to start off that I am a seasonal kind of guy, and this time of the year I quit turning and I started carving a lot. And I came to Larry and I said, look, I'd kind of like to talk to you. I think I went dead, didn't I? Are you adjusting? Okay. And so I came up with this whole idea, the concept. We're going to be talking about several things. So in my typical style, I'm going to be all over trying to provide you information.
You have no style.
Keep in mind, ignore the man behind the curtain. And the deal is anything I say here, I'll be happy to talk to you about, and I'm easy to get out. So let's see if this works. It didn't work, guy. Am I hitting the wrong button? Here? Yeah. No. We're going to talk about seasonal turning and a little hand carving. And then keep in mind that we're going to be out at Rob's place this afternoon, and I'm going to show you how to turn the traditional AAW Christmas tree. And that takes a gouge, just a roughing gouge, and a little parting tool. Okay? I don't know anything else that you want to say. My background, I've told you folks before, I was a woodworker, a wood turner, and a wood carver. My grandfather was German. He insisted that I be all three. Said you can't do one without the other. We're going to cross all three of these today. We're going to do some rustic work, some wood turning and woodwork. We're going to work with some carving and some turning. Next slide, please. And we're going to touch all three, like I said, rustic, next slide. But what I'm emphasizing is no dust, because this time of the year, I don't like the dust. I've got a great dust collector and it sucks everything out, but it also sucks the heat out. And I'm working on one, on a recycling one, but it's not there yet. So I become a wood carver. I carve eagles and these little Santa Clauses and things like that. The eagles end up being shipped back east and other places. But the stuff that I do today, even though I'm doing some turning, is very, very low dust. The basswood turning is very dusty. I don't do it now. I've already done all the ones I'm going to do for my carvings and stuff back last month, so we're a little late on that. But I want to give you the idea and the concept of being able to do some of this stuff. Next. Why carving? Embellishing is hot, hotter than a pistol. Carving, burning, piercing, coloring, mixed materials, all that stuff is hot. When I went out to Phoenix, when I went to Waco, it was dominated by embellishment. 3/4, 75% of Waco, and at least half of Phoenix was about embellishment. I'm a production wood turner. I sell stuff, and I also make stuff for people, but I'm always thinking about what is good for the customer, what does the customer want. And right now, they want color, they want carving, they want embellishment of various kinds. Next slide, please. Wood carving types. There are two. We're going to talk about them today and this afternoon, but I want to introduce you to it. It's basically power or no power. Power is chainsaws, rotary micromotors like Beth has. She just got a new one. Turbo, and this is air, and reciprocating, which is a machine, usually an automock, and it reciprocates with the blade. Now, non-power tools are pushed by hand or by a striker, a mallet, and they're dustless. Except for the power tool, the automac, it doesn't kick up dust. Next slide, please. Richard, why don't you go ahead and start those around, those magazines around. That way they can get a taste of those. Yeah. What's coming around is the National Wood Carving Magazine, and a wood carving magazine, and then the National Wood Carving Association, then a company called Tree Line, and finally a little thing from the AEW describing this little tree. Give you a chance to look at some of those. Non-power carving is very friendly because it's dustless. Power carving requires a quality dust collector. I know, Mr. Bazanson, you do power carving. You've got one. I'm sure you got a, and it's still dusty. It's very difficult to catch it all. Next slide, please. Why? It's inexpensive to start up. I can start you up wood carving for less than $60. It's dustless, it's powerless, and it's a good way to work outside the box. Next slide, please. The seasonal opportunities right now are endless. They start at the end of October with Halloween. You've got everything. You've got fall fairs, you've got dinners, you've got lunches, you've got Kwanzaa, you've got Hanukkah, you've got Christmas, you've got New Year's, and all that other stuff to do. I went to a little thing Thursday. They asked me to just show my stuff because it was just a thank you for some customers. I made 60 of these deer last week. I sold 30 of them there. Surprised the heck out of me because they usually don't sell that many, but people are, oh, I'm sorry. The deer, yeah, which we're going to talk about today. And because a lot of people are using them, I had a caterer buy a bunch because he's putting them in the tables. So this, if you're a production guy, this is gold time. Stuff that I've done back in the summer, I'm now selling now. Remember though, it's always two things this time of the year. Gifts or ornamentation or decoration, same thing. If you remember gifts and that, ornamentation, that's what sells this time of the year. Next. Tools. The tools we use, we're going to use a lathe. I'm going to talk to you about drill bits, special drill bits up here today. A mallet that you turn yourself. You remember I turned one in about 5 minutes in April, except that Larry changed the time and said it was 10 minutes and 2. Scared the dickens out of me. Anyway, 5-minute thing with a piece of hickory or oak. You can turn a mallet, which you'll need if you're going to work with a deer. Then the carving tools, I use flex cuts, and then I use a couple of German style I'll show you. And then a buffing machine, which is sitting down here in a little box that I made. And I'll be showing you that a little later on too. Next slide, please. The materials. We're going to be using some maple, a little basswood. I'm going to show you some paint if you want it, but you also paint carvings with aniline dyes or paint. A little hardware, some string, which is going to be coming around there in a minute. And then I put HOK, which is heaven only knows. Because I made a little tiny hat, and my wife said, wouldn't it look, I turned it, it's up here, and said, wouldn't it look good with a little bird on it? And I went, no, because I ain't going to carve a little bird. And she said, oh, I want a bird on it. Well, that ended it. I went to Michael's, found these little tiny birds. I didn't know. Heaven only knows. And I got them, I glued it on there. She's happy. She got a bird on her little hat. Next slide. Tables, rooms, trees, hallways, doorways, and humans. Humans, I make a lot of little Christmas things that are just a little face of a Santa Claus and carve them, and then with a little hook that hook on people so that people can wear them at Christmas. Humans. That's what you're going for. That's what you're making for. Decoration, ornamentation, gifts in those areas. Connect with the customer. Connect with the customer. If I'm getting ready to give my good friend Mark Warner over there a gift, I'm going to connect with him. I want to find out what he's interested in, what he's doing, what I can do, make him a good gift. That's how you do gifts. Okay? So what the deal is, connect with the customer. It's a season, yes. Connect with the customer. Are you giving or selling, and find out what they want. Next slide, please. I have an experiment. Miss Denise, I need you, because you promised.
On the spot.
On the spot.
Only because Helen's not here.
Okay. You can stay right up here. Is she in the picture, though? Come on around. My good friend Denise. You know, we have a time schedule. Okay. All I want you to do, I'm going to hand you this. I just want you to react. Okay? Both hands. Two things. There.
Oh my goodness. Is that ever adorable? They're little
Can you hear?
cutesy Christmas ornaments.
Cutesy. Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Thank you.
Love it.
Those are yours.
Oh.
Oh, I would volunteer.
Next slide. One way to connect is this. Remember this little phrase at Christmas. If you're going to do something small, small is good, tiny is better. And when you hand something to a lady and they go, cute, it's so tiny, it's darling, blah, you just connected, you just sold it, the old man pulls his wallet out and pays you the money. It's done. When I was in there at this thing Thursday night, lady come up, she saw this little deer. I had them under the Christmas tree, you know. I put them on the Christmas tree because I figured, what the heck. She walked up, she said, "Oh, they're so darling." I went, cha-ching. And that's what happened. She came up, she said, "Pay the man." Literally, pay the man. I said, "2 of them, ma'am?" I said, "1 on each side of the fireplace?" She said, "Yeah." I said, $50. It works. Now, I'm not pushing the selling so much, but the thing is, if you're going to make a deer, if you're going to make something for your mother or your sister or some guy to give as a present, try to connect. And one of the ways is miniatures. We're going to do some miniatures in just a minute. Next slide, please. That's big. Next slide. That's tiny. Okay? I guarantee you that sells. The big ones, those were mine too. Never sold a one of them. Next slide, please. Personalized, names, color, vocation. What I handed Denise was a little rolling pin and a little mallet. Little mallet, if you've got a woodworker or wood turner, you turn them a little mallet. If you got a baker, somebody who makes pies and stuff, you turn them a little, something like that, something they're going to use. A wood turner, for me, if they get a present, guess what they get? You get a gouge. I turn a little handle with a little brass ferrule. I take a 16-penny nail. I drive it in the end of it. I cut it off so it looks like a little bowl gouge, and that's what they get. All right? Experiences, memories. Anybody know what? I can't tell if I'm in the camera or not, but I'll show it to you. Can you see that? Pull back. Okay. Can you see that or not? I'll pass it around. Richard, you want to pass it around? Well, I'll tell you, it's a I see the first one that gets it. It's a honeygram, piece of chocolate. It's a s'more. Memories. Pass it around. I carve and make those by the dozens at Christmas. You put a little eye bolt on the side of it. You can start those little eye bolts around now, Richard. And I put those little eye bolts with little eyelets on it, on the top of it, put a little string. You can start the strings. And Christmas ornament. People walk up to the Christmas tree and they go, "Oh, I remember when I was 16 and I had a s'more and Jane kissed me." I don't know what they say. But the point of it is that it connects with the memories. Now I'm saying connect with the customer. Customer doesn't mean they have to pay for it. Customer means they got to want it, they like it, and they appreciate it. Next, please. Memories. Finally, you can get a hold of me anytime you want to at any of those places. You can get on woodthatrocks.com and leave me a message, or you can say les@woodthatrocks.com, and then I think they've got a connection on the website to me. If you have a question about what I'm doing, what I think, hit me. I don't care. I'll be happy to answer it. I'll give you my opinion. All right? Oh, there we are. All right. Let's play on the lathe a little bit. We're going to make some miniatures. I'm going to be using some maple, but I want to show you. Can I show those on the top one? There we go. Can you see those okay? I think you can. Those are called stab centers. They're from Sorby, much better. Okay? This one is a big one, medium, little magnet up there. I'll put these away. And I'm using a little one. Why do I use these things? Because it's a production tool. The lathe came on, it's running. In the end, I drill a little tiny hole. You're going to see what the little tiny hole is for. Then I come up and I stick in that hole. There's a little spring there, and it's not turning that piece. When I come up here, catch that, there it goes. I can bring it back, I can stop it, I can readjust it, I can do what I want to with it. They're very, very handy. All right? Yes? It's called a stab center. The question was, what are they called? Stab centers by Sorby. You'll see them in all the catalogs. STEB, stab center. All right? Crank this up, keep it a nice low RPM. Is that max? There we go. We're going to just rough this little puppy out. Takes a couple of swipes to do it. This is the boring part. Okay? Then I set in with my scraper, my big scraper. It's got a little round taper to it. And a little more speed. Okay. And That's good. I'm gonna lower this just a little. There we go. Now, we're gonna make a little tiny mallet. So, I don't want that one. Start with a little round scraper. Okay. I've drilled a hole in here about a little more than a half an inch. So whenever I start this in a minute, I think I'll do it a little differently this time. I don't normally do it this way, but I want to make sure you understand. I go ahead and put a little parting cut right about here. And today I'll just go here. I don't measure a whole lot. Now, in here, right about in here, is where the end of that hole is. What's the little hole for? The little eye bolt that goes in, the little eyelet, that's what it's called. Because once you get one of those, it's very difficult to turn them in the center, and I kind of like to see them hanging straight. Ask questions if you like, just holler. We'll start with the handle. I'm going to do exactly like I did the big one. It's just going to be a little faster. Ready? Start with the handle. The handle's done. Then what I got to do, go back to my big old scraper. You don't need small tools for small things. A lot of people think you do, especially Sorby. I'm going to show you again how I taper it. I know some of you saw my demo in April. You remember how I did a taper? Tell me, someone. You start off, like in this case, it's going to be a number 3 taper, so I pretend that there's a 3rd there. And if I can find a pencil, I'll mark it for you just to show you. I look at this and I go, there's a 3rd, there's a 3rd. I start right here with the point, I cut that 3rd. I start right in here, cut that 3rd again, start at the front, and it's got a taper on it. You can make a 2 taper, a 3 taper, 18 taper if you want to. I'm going to go to a little small scraper, then I'm just going to tune this little thing up here. Turn it in. I'm going to go straight in right here. And finally, if you haven't seen one, these are the most wonderful tools in the world. Let me see if you can see it better. I'm trying to pass it. The bottom of it looks like that. It's a point, and it's called a spear point. Let me show you what you can do with them. You can come in here like this, move that around. Do you see those little threads come off that? Right? Yeah. Won't be able to get it to do it twice. Watch this one. A little bit of a taper. They're just real tiny little wispy things. I'll come in here. I can build off that, take that off, take it down, and that's pretty well good. It's smooth right now. I'm going to put a little bit at the same speed. I don't much slow down for sanding on these little ones. All right? Now, what do we want to use for a finish for it? Got any ideas? Got any ideas? I can't hear you. Yeah, see how you do it. Takes a long time. I'm making these by the hundreds. All right? I can turn these suckers at about 25 an hour. About a couple of minutes once I'm by myself. How about this? Little piece of carnauba wax. All right? Crank it up. You just put it on there like this. Let it get a little warm. You'll feel it. Right about there. We'll put this over here. I'm going to walk off camera 1 second. You've been told to never, ever, ever polish with a rag, right? I'm going to polish with a rag, and I'm going to show you the only safe way to do it. Just in case. You take a rag, cloth, if you want to say it that way, fold it up a couple of times till you have this little roll like this. Just like a cinnamon roll. You take it out, and now it's just one little piece of cloth, right? You just fold it over. You take the part that's closed. You hold it with his fingers. Don't wrap it around anything. You hold this down here. Turn up the speed. Now, if it goes or it wraps around, it ain't going to hurt you. It's the only way you can do it. But the reason I do it is because the cloth does such a wonderful job. I'm going to lay that on this guy. Now, what I'm doing if I'm working in the shop, I just pull this off and the lathe just keeps right on going, and I'm mounting the next one. Then when I get a chance, I'm going to get my little saw. I'm just going to go ahead and show you the whole process. It's a little pull saw, and I'll knock this little sprue off. And I'll usually, whenever I'm by myself, I kind of go a little bit deeper with it. I just don't want to be the one to test this through screen, because occasionally they will fly off. A lot more sawing than I should be doing. All right. Now, I have a one-way 1640 lathe. So I've got a spindle here like with the ways of 40 inches. And over here, I've got another spindle sticking out here. Of course, you do two here, but I can really get to mine. And on here, over here, I have a little faceplate, and I've turned a 5-inch piece of plywood and mounted on it. Then I use PSA, sticky sandpaper, and put on it. I turn on the lathe, it's running forward, and this little area where I cut off, I just touch it, turn around and touch it. Then I walk over to my little table when I do these, and I've got a carving tool. And can we go back to the top again?
Getting there. There you go.
Okay. It's kind of hard to see it, but there's just a little nub here. And I take that off with my carving tool, and so I'll turn a bunch of these and do that. Richard, you want to take that around? Thank you. And go ahead and take those around. These are some possibilities to do with those, and that's why I want to say it. Okay, let's do something else. Now, so if you happen to have a woodworker, you get a woodworker, they're going to, a mallet's kind of a good thing to do. A little, if you have a little baseball player, a little miniature ball bat would do it. Also, anything around. Think of things that are round and that you can turn the lathe. I remember a conversation I had with Ernie Conover once. And I said, why and how do you know when you're a good wood turner? And he looked at me. I thought he'd say, well, when you sold one for $500 or something. He didn't. He said, when you turn to a lathe to solve a problem, and if you have a problem, you try to use the lathe to solve the problem. And I started thinking about that, and it's true. So when I tried gifts and things like that, I used to never do this sort of stuff. And then I said, why not? It's quick, it's fast, it's something I know how to do. So I would encourage you. Also, by the way, Ron Fleming is a good friend of mine out in Tulsa. I asked him once, or I didn't ask him, I told him, I said, you're a heck of a turner. He looked at me, of course he's about this tall. So he looked up at me and he said, not really. He said, I'm a pretty good carver though. Yeah, 35,000 a piece. Yes, sir, Mark?
What size blanks, those little ornaments, what size blanks do you start with?
I apologize. What size blanks am I using? What I'm doing is I just use little pieces of maple that I've already cut up because I'm doing a lot of segmented work, and it's just 7/8 by an inch. I don't bother knocking it off to the side. So it's just normal 3/4 inch stock. You take a little tiny drill bit, you'll have to play with it a little bit with your eye bolt, and you drill in about 5/8 of an inch on one end. That's the end that's going to go up here. And it works every time with the maple. The maple, I use the maple because I can go ahead and put aniline dye on it. I don't have to use the carnauba wax. I can use aniline dye. I can use polyurethane. If you want to use polyurethane, go ahead and you put the string on them, dip them, and hang them up. And then after it starts drying, All you have to do is just wipe, there'll be a little bubble on the bottom of it. You just sort of wipe that off, clean it up. That makes sense? All right, a couple of little places here I'm going to part. I'm going to make something a little different. Now, let's say you had a Christmas list and it had a gardener on it. What would you give a gardener? Hard time. I'm going to put about a number 4 taper on this. So I did 1, 2, 3, 4. Probably another one to make it look better. All right. What would you give a gardener? How many? Oh, I heard it. A dibble. Remember a dibble? I did one in April. Oh, I want to show you one other thing too I do, and I do it so fast I forget people. Ernie Conover showed me this one too. I used to go like this to do these, and I also hook this up under my arm like this so it can't go anywhere and it's steady, and I'm holding it with the 2 middle fingers, okay? And I do that so I can do things with one hand. I mean, I can sit here and do this if I want to, but what I want to do is I want to be able to push it through steadily with these small pieces. So you take your thumb and you put it on this fairly sharp edge right here. See that? Okay. I'm holding it with my left hand and I'm pushing it with this right hand. Pulling back. And that way I have good control over it. You don't want to wrap your hand around here. You want to keep it up, but it's up. Then I'll use a spear point. We'll take our little spear point and we're going to mark off some little pretend marks to plant your bulbs. I guess you could plant little baby bulbs with it. And since I'm there, I'll go ahead. Now watch the stuff fly off this. We'll give it a little speed to see what happens. Right there. That's end grain. And skews, despite what everybody says, love end grain. There we go. Little catch there. That's my fault. And little edge. We're going to do a little bit more here with this little guy. Bring her down a little bit. Should I show out, Larry? Where is he? Ah, there we go. And it's done. I would do it the same way. I would sand it with 220, and then I would put a little bit of either color on it or a little bit of stain or whatever. Okay? One more here. No, I don't think I am. I'm going to pick up. This afternoon I'll do a rolling pin, but I'm going to hold off for now. So that's the way you do miniatures, and they're wonderful. Let's talk about this little deer. There we go. Larry, I forgot to ask you, can you get me with there? With a little deer? Can you get him? Okay, good. I forgot to ask where Larry is. Is he in here? Okay. I sent him specifications, dimensions for these pieces. And I don't know if he was going to put them on the site or not. If not, I'll send them to you. I can't pull them off the top of my head because, frankly, I don't use dimensions. I just sort of cut it, and whatever fits, it looks good to me, I do. But to start you out, okay, the deal is, it's green wood. This is hickory and some, look like a little cherry. I cut whenever I need it. So I went out a couple of weeks back and cut it on my place. Fairly straight, but it doesn't matter. Little gnarly things look good too. And You can make them very small, you can make them very big. Follow the guidelines that I gave you to begin with that are on the website, and you can't go wrong. Here's the way we do it. Oh, what happens to green wood whenever it dries? It what? This doesn't crack. That wasn't what I was looking for, but it can. Hickory, however, is one of those woods. It cracks just a little bit, but that little stop right there is pretty stable. It won't hurt these. It won't hurt these. But what I was looking for was it dries and it goes oval shaped. These branches go oval. I put these in. I could not get these suckers out. There's no glue here. And I was hoping I could pull one out, but I can't. So you just put them together with no glue. That's what I'm saying. All right, here's the way we start. Let me see if I can get this in some perspective. To the right. There we go. Now I want to try to show this. There we go. Everything's opposite and backwards. You start off with a piece, let's say 5 inches round, cut it about 7 or 8 inches long. I cut it on the bandsaw. Then I use, you want to get those spade bits there? I use Bosch spade bits. They're called Waves or Daredevils. They're great. They're great for green wood. And I cut inside here. I just cut, I've laid on my workbench, I cut 2 holes. This is going to be for 1 foot. What did come off? An ear. And he's got leprosy. And then I take it, drill 2 holes. They're going to be 1-inch holes. I roll it over a little bit. I do 2 more 1-inch holes, about 1.5 inches deep or so. Then I get these pieces, I put them on my lathe. You saw me do it. I turn tenons on them real quick, and I just use a wrench to make a 1-inch tenon, about 1 inch long. Then I'm going to go off camera again. Oop. I turn one of my mallets, and I do this, boy. Stuff's falling off now. And I nail the dickens out of them. And they get driven in, and they survive quite well, except the ears popped off. Oh, thank you. Thanks for the ear. Lend me your ears. And then that's done. Then I do the same thing with the neck. I drill a hole down the top of it. Then I drill a hole into the back side of him. That's for his tail. I then take what is called, the head part of it. That's a turning. I taper it down on one side, on the back a little bit, drill a little hole in the bottom of it, pound it in. Pound in that. Meanwhile, I go ahead and put a 3/4 inch hole up here, and I turn these. I turn these on a step center. They get a step center so I can try them, pull them off, and I can put them back on. The step center allows you to remount them. So I can put them right back in, and then they get tapped in too. So the first thing you want to do is to turn yourself a nice little mallet, preferably hickory if you've got it. If you don't have it, come down. I'll give you all you want. I've got 16 acres of it. Put yourself a nice little bowl on the front of it. You take this, Richard? I'm going to pass this sucker around if you want to. If his ears fall off, put them back in. Be kind. Yes, ma'am. Question.
Those green wood inside the house, because of the time you cut it, the bugs are dead in it, or is there...
I don't have, I always kind of look at it and check it, but I'm cutting green wood, and I'm sorry, I apologize. The question Denise asked was, being careful about the fact that it's green wood, it could have some bugs and that sort of stuff. I always look at it and check it. I'm cutting green wood. I rarely cut dead wood for that reason, and I've never had that problem. But I make them, they get set on the front porch just like I had, and that's where they're stored out in the cold. Then I will start bringing them in after they've been out there for a week or two, and then kind of let them acclimate. But they will turn oval, and they'll pretty well hold together. And they're hefty. And they'll sell for anywhere from $20 to $40, depending on where you're selling them. And you can make them very, very fast. I made those 60 in 2 days. Sir?
There's a lot of guys on the internet have been talking about microwaving to kill bugs.
Yeah, and I think that's the question he said was, their comment was that you could microwave them. So if you do have some bugs in it. I look for evidence of them, and I don't, because again, they're green, and usually they don't have bugs if they're green, usually. But hickory particularly is not quite so, I don't know that it has a lot of bugs. I don't think they like hickory as much. But anyway, that was what he was saying. And so the idea is you can microwave them, which will do it. All right? Now, the next thing, I'm going to go off camera again here real quick. I want to talk to you about this. I'm going to do some carving after the break here in a little bit. When do we start the break?
Whenever you're ready to start carving.
Really? I have control. Here's what we do. Can you go top again, please? Okay. This little guy here looks like a little shell or bullet. And for years, I called these little Santa Clauses that I make bullet Santa Clauses, because they were the shape of a bullet, and then I would put a little face on them. And again, it goes back to Conover. I used to do these by hand and make them round by hand, and it takes an hour or so to do it. And then one day it dawned on me, I was thinking about it, I got a lathe out there, man. It's what it does is make round things. So I went out and started turning them around, and I came up with this, started making little Santa Clauses into it. But it's also pretty good for a little tree and numerous other little things. Richard, if you'd start those around, these little ones right here. Yeah. These are coming around in pairs. You don't have to do that one. Just this one and this one and this one. All right? And this one. Put those two together. Now, what happens is I also started turning the basswood into other shapes. My wife wanted a pumpkin, a wooden pumpkin. I said, great. I have no idea how I'm going to make a wooden pumpkin. Went out and looked at some pumpkins and said, well, that's not too tough. So I started in with this. Started turning them on my lathe, just a little shape of a gourd. And then I'd drill a hole. And what I would do is, you hand me that one right there, Richard, you got? Thank you. I'll give it right back to you. I first started off putting this little plug on it. And so I'd put it in my chuck, turn it, and then I would turn the indentation. And finally, to go faster, I just went ahead and did it. I have a drill press. I drill pressed it. It was faster. And I'd come up with this thing. What would happen next is I would carve it. It's what I'm going to do this afternoon, show you how to make one of these, because this is a good way to start with straight lines and just gouges and cuts. It's real straight and simple. Good place to start. And then I'd get some grapevine and put it in the hole. Take this, stick an awl on the bottom of it, and douse it in aniline dye, in an orange dye. And these are very welcome. People love these things. You're going to take these, pass this around too. Go the other way with it maybe. And these two, Richard. And would you please pass me those spools and that little second one right there, the one that I'm going to do, it's a candle thing. Yeah, pass that around to you. That one that's going around is a little candle holder. And it's supposed to be 2 pumpkins whenever it's carved. Now here's another little thing that you can do. And it's either for carving or for just gifts in general. This is basswood again. And I know a bunch of you remember wooden spools. Okay, they were made from basswood years ago. Then they started making them out of pine. Now they make them out of foam. Well, when I was a kid, I was in Boy Scouts, and I was in Boy Scouts and all that stuff. We'd make all sorts of stuff with spools. I couldn't find wooden spools except little tiny ones, and they were a fortune, so I started making my own. And they're really easy to turn. All you have to do is turn something around any size you want. I come in just with a little bit of an angle with just a little bit of an angle with a parting tool. And over here the same thing. Then I just take a Badan tool. Are you familiar with a Badan? A Badan looks like this. It's See if I can get that around there. It's just basically a 45-degree angle cut on a piece of metal, and it's presented to the wood with the top up. In France, where this came from, they turn it with the grind up, and they use it like a skew. I've tried it. I didn't like it, especially when it flew across the room. Anyway, I didn't admit to that though. But anyway, this is just used to just smooth this out nice and straight, and it works quite well. A Badan. Did you already start one of these around? Good shot. And those little spools, here's another one. And here's the Badan. No, I'm not going to do that. And anyway, those little guys are very, very useful. You start making little spool things for people, you can start giving them spools, and the crafting person will love you. You can make them out of anything. Maple is wonderful. Any of the woods, you can do that because you don't have to carve them. I make them out of basswood because I will turn around then and I will carve little faces and things in them. At Christmas time, I carve little Christmas trees on one side and something else on the other. At different events, I carve little different things in them. Doesn't take much, and then people like them. Put a little eye bolt or eyelet in the top of it, not an eye bolt, an eyelet in them, and hang them from the Christmas tree. Remember, small is good and tiny is better. At Christmas time, especially with trees and ornamentation, stay light, okay? Now, Mr. Bezanson, when that deer comes around, would you take possession of him and put him on your table today to give away in the raffle? I always say a raffle or something. I'll call it an auction or something else. Anyway, in the raffle. That'll be given away today, okay? The deal is, though, and the whole concept is that I'm trying to shape the wood into something that I'm going to carve on later on. I had somewhat placed here. I hate to keep going off camera. Let me show them first, Richard. This is pretty typical. I just turn something, and it's basswood usually, into a long taper. I'm so sorry. Thank you very much. You're a good man. I don't care what Larry says. And up at the top is kind of a ball about this wide. You can see why. Then I just shape this with my knife, shape this, put a face on it, and we hang them all over the house. These little things are all over the house and given to people, and they love them. Finally, before Richard leaves there, I want to show them this. Heaven only knows. I keep talking about heaven only knows. Heaven only knows what I'm going to do with one of these things. You know, invent something, try something. I have some lead, so I drilled a hole, I put some lead in the bottom. Now it won't go over. A little weeby thing. Now, little personal note here. My daughter is a physician. She's a surgeon. My other daughter is a psychiatrist. Yeah, I know.
You're set.
Yeah, I'm set. My son is a systems analyst, and he got an engineering degree for free like I did, just for fun. And at Christmas, I'll go in there, and you got, I don't know how much education. And what are they doing? They're having little weeble wars. I hurt you. Ow, ow. Now, the psychiatrist, she goes, well, she says, I won't hurt you, but I will drive you crazy or something like that. And they're, you know, I will tell you, I get no better joy, nothing better out of wood turning or woodworking than when my kids who are 40 years old are sitting in there on the floor playing with these little Santa Clauses and stuff. So I'm telling you, connect with the customer, connect with these people, and they'll love them forever. Would you take that one, please, Richard? Why don't you take the one with the little quilt and that one too, and pass them around too. Go ahead and ask questions if you like. I'm just kind of going off camera here to get some of this stuff passed around. That little can in there, Richard, is called matte finish. Yeah, pass that around. I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about it when we do wood carvings and stuff today. But if you want to have an alternative way to finish the little miniatures, if you don't want to do the wax, this matte finish that's coming around is a wonderful, wonderful product. It comes, who makes that, Beth? Who makes that? Cryon? That's what I thought. And I've used it a lot on wood turnings because most of the time the wood turnings, people don't like them shiny. They like them in that matte finish. It's a good, tough way to put a finish on those so that you can handle them and they don't get dirty. And the little miniatures are that way, but also those wood carvings. I just wanted to give you the concept of taking the wood, basswood, and turning it into a shape that you can carve later on. In a few minutes, we're going to break, and then I'm going to be showing you some basic carving techniques and some tools and stuff. We're going to go out this afternoon out to Rob's and Brian. I want to keep saying Rob. Brian. We're going to go out to Brian's. Thank you, sir. And what we're going to do is basically what you want to do. I'll show you how to do some miniatures. I'll show you some little techniques I've got, and then I'm going to carve or do one of these little Christmas trees. But carving is a lot of fun to do. It's very accepted. You will become a very popular person when they find out you're a carver. I carry a little shoebox with me. Honest to goodness, I do. And I have 4 or 5 little tools in it, and I have a piece I'm working on. That's why I brought this one. This piece I was working on yesterday in the doctor's office. And I got 15 minutes to kill. I open up the little shoebox, I pull out my gouge, and I'm sitting there doing this. And they're falling, the chips are falling in, and no one has ever said a word to me. Number one. Number two, I usually have like 5 people around me going, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? Can I have a card? Yeah, you can have a card. And so I would just encourage you to try it. Embellishment's hot. You cannot carve the hardwoods like this. You can use bigger chisels, which I'll talk about this afternoon, and do it. But you have to put a lot of force on the turnings and stuff, and it'll destroy them. It's very difficult to do. I can show you how to do some of it, but that's usually a power carving world where it doesn't cause the strain on the turning. But the little pieces like this, and if it's made out of basswood or cherry or some of the other woods that are real lightweight and not as heavy woods, you can do a lot of carving on them and start with a lathe. Larry?
Yes, sir.
We're going to break.
Okay.
Unless there's a question. Sir?
Where do you get the basswood?
Basswood is something you can get from any wood dealer, but they tend to give it to you in very nice little squares that are perfectly square and clear and pretty, and they'll charge you 4 times what you can get in other places. I can give you some resources. I order mine from people up in Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, and if you look at that magazine that Carl didn't have it, somebody had it, the one that's the National Wood Carving Association, they have resources every couple of times a year where they talk about it and they have people every day. You should be able to pay $2 or so a foot for it. I have seen just recently down in Branson at a place that sells wood carving stuff that was a square that was 12 inches, 2 by 2, and he was getting $16 for it.
What about UTC?
UTC, my good friend up there, UTC from New York, I can't remember his first name now. Anyway, he also sells them.